Okay, I want to start off this video by saying that I'm kind of sick and tired of hating my fellow Americans. It's not how I was raised, and I think that we have a responsibility to get past these past 3 years. And as much as this debate is cantankerous, I think we should all know that President Trump, or if it's going to be future President Biden or past President Obama, are all beholden to the will of the people. President Trump has to take the policies that President Obama gave him like a baton and pass it on like a lineage. So, in essence, the president is the will of the people, and he is restrained by the history of the office. And it is with that that I bring to you a need for us to actually talk about policies rather than personal attacks. And I am going to start by issuing this challenge to anyone who considers themselves a bread tuber or a debater to let's hash this out. Let's talk about the actual policies that last night's debate were brought to the table. Let's talk about the feasibility of Joe Biden's platform on 3 accounts, irrespective of personal insults and, well, accusations of criminalization. All right? I have 3 specific issues that I would like to address from my perspective as an African American. The first one is the feasibility of the of the Biden initiative to bring back Obamacare. Okay, and that, Biden care, basically. I'd like to talk to you about the feasibility of Biden care. Then we could talk about critical race theory. That's right, critical race theory. And finally, I would like to talk to you about the possibility of us getting over this antagonism, this hatred that we've had for each other, and what is the actual origin of it. If you are one of the people who watch these kind of shows and you're brave enough to voice your opinions, then by all means, share your thoughts. School me, all right? Because I don't think what was demonstrated last night on the debate was actually productive. Biden is a skilled flim-flam. No, that's not fair. Joe Biden is more adept at giving platitudes than he is actually promoting actionable policies. Joe Biden, he could be very well saying, well, 1,000 points of light, let's bring this country together, let's twirl into the realms of peace and tranquility, and that'll be good enough for some people, but it's not good enough for me. Let's start right into it. When it comes to Joe Biden's plan to bring back the Affordable Care Act and the individual mandate, I want you guys to understand how his policy is different than Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders was 100% honest with his intentions. He had every intention of making every form of non-elective surgery criminal. If you wanted to practice healthcare, you would have had to have done it under Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All plan, or you would face prosecution. In other words, Bernie Sanders did not lie. He was going to confiscate the means of production from nurses, doctors, and medical technicians. Bernie Sanders stuck to his guns, and that is why he lost. Because Joe Biden's main constituency is union organized suburbanite women who find him attractive. Karen ended Bernie Sanders' campaign because Karen knows that after a summer of watching law enforcement officers denigrated and destroyed, the last thing a Karen or a suburbanite middle management woman wanted was to be drafted into becoming a healthcare enforcement officers having to deal with the same people that are telling cops that they're racist on a regular basis. Karen destroyed Bernie Sanders, and Karen is going to destroy any initiative towards universal health care. The only way Joe Biden is going to get past Karen is if he waits out until more Caribbean or non-American women become nurses, and thereby surrounding the the legacy establishment of healthcare that is already entrenched. Karen is not going to let universal healthcare turn her into a health enforcement officer after spending a summer destroying the integrity of law enforcement officers. That is what I'm saying. Furthermore, it's going to take Joe Biden at least 2 years to enact a policy, a plan, and a government bureaucracy for a what I'm going to impose. It's going to take at least 2 years for Joe Biden to get a government equivalent to private sector healthcare. And when you do, we're going to have private sector and public sector going at it. The public sector is going to be criminally incompetent, and the private sector is going to be criminally expensive. So the prospects of us having universal health care in the near future or before Joe Biden walks off this earth is rather moot. That's my belief on Joe Biden's chances of getting universal health care across. What about critical race theory? Well, critical race theory is an interesting problem because it has no solution. It's basically a platform for narcissism and impotent rage. The most eloquent and elegant demonstration of the end result of critical race theory is over in March when an African-American gentleman lit himself on fire trying to burn down a museum. Critical race theory it's almost, I'd hate to say this, but it's a separatist movement, but it's not even as competent as the internet's MGTOW, men going their own way. Critical race theory is NGTOW, N-words going their own way, and they have nowhere to go because once again, they are blocked off by Karen. Let me explain. Schools, union organized schools and white feminism want critical race theory taught to an extent that is going to elevate black participation in the Democratic Party, but they do not want to give the real radical critical race theorists what they're actually looking for, and that is full segregation from our legal system, from our education system. They want separate schooling for black children, the higher ups on the critical race theory spectrum. But instead, they're getting white women who are profiting from critical race theory, like you know who I'm talking about. Critical race theory is incompetent, it's self-destructive, it leads to narcissism and self-hate. There's no rectifying that situation. Now, it might have a few truths every once in a while, but when it's all said and done, it serves no purpose but to demoralize people. Finally, it's not going to be up to Joe Biden to bring the country together, which is his greatest talking point. He says it's his job to put the country back together. No, that's not going to happen. We're not going to get back together until we actually address what happened in the past 3 years. Donald Trump was a simple man who had simple ideas and spoke simply, but they were bold. And it was such a shock to the system that the FBI, the CIA, the mainstream media, the frontline late night comedians and the SNL and Daily Show diaspora, social media, all unified to spread multiple lies about him, including that this country was under Russian occupation. There's not going to be any reconciliation with the Democrats and Republicans until someone apologizes for what happened to the past 3 years. Otherwise, we fully understand who is running the show. We fully understand that this is a kleptocracy, that this is an influence peddling network in our government, and There's nothing Joe Biden could do to solve it. And if there's going to be any forgiveness at all, if there's only going to be any unity, Wendy, it's going to have to come from the individual. It's going to have to come from individual Christians and individual Democrats and Republicans to learn to love their brothers and sisters once again. That's not Joe Biden's job, that's your job. So, in conclusion, one, Joe Biden's not going to be able to get a public option operating within his first 2 years. He's probably going to pass away. Two, critical race theory is not even as competent as MGTOW. It is expensive and it's self-destructive, and it only leads to impotent rage. And three, we have to learn to love each other as fellow Americans, and we have to do the healing ourselves. It's not Joe Biden's job to do so. All right, that's all I had to say. But I also want to say this. I want us to start fighting against the narrative, the meta narrative of all of this between critical race theory, healthcare, and stuff. See, I've always said that America is in a position of vulnerability, and worse yet, that we're transitioning from a platform where we were a hierarchy based on competency, and now we're moving into a hierarchy based on vulnerability, on our collective vulnerability. And even despite the fact that we are vulnerable, we cannot let people who exploit their vulnerabilities run this country, because no nation stands on its vulnerable people. We have to be strong. You don't have to hold the world on your shoulder by yourself if you're a Democrat or a Republican, but it is wise to be able to hold your own weight. And that's all that ever needed to be said between the divide between the Democrats and the Republicans. Republicans want the individual to hold his own weight. The Democrats want to uplift those who are struggling. There is more than enough middle ground between all of us that we can make these situations amicable. All right? So, it's your boy Louis Sefer. It's been a long rant, but thank you and have a good night. Peace.